Have you ever heard a joke in English and everyone laughed except you? Today, you'll discover exactly why that happens and how to finally get the punchline. Let's go.
Hey, Liam. Something came to my mind. Have you ever heard a joke in English and everyone laughed except you?
Yes, that is common. But today, you will understand why and start getting the jokes.
Really? Because sometimes I feel so lost and I just smile like I understand.
That is common. Understanding English and understanding humor are two different things.
Wait, so knowing vocabulary is not enough to understand jokes?
Exactly. Because jokes depend on context, culture, and timing, not just words.
Wow, that is interesting. So what makes English jokes so difficult?
Most jokes depend on double meanings, similar sounds, and cultural references. If you miss one of these, the joke stops being funny.
So that is why I feel confused, right?
Right. Because your brain is trying to understand the words, but not the hidden meaning behind them.
Can you give me a simple example of that?
Sure. Imagine someone says, "I used to be a baker, but I could not make enough dough." Here, dough can mean money or the mixture for bread.
Oh, wow. I did not catch that at first.
You see? That's the point. Jokes often play with words that have more than one meaning.
So, if I only think about one meaning, I miss the joke?
Sure. And that's one of the biggest reasons learners struggle.
Interesting. But why do I always try to translate everything in my head?
Because your brain is used to your native language, so it automatically tries to convert English into something familiar.
And that's bad for understanding jokes, right?
It makes things harder, because jokes don't work word for word, they work as a whole idea.
So, when I translate, I break the joke.
That's right, because the humor is usually lost in translation.
Wow, that makes sense now. So, what should I do instead?
You should focus on the general meaning and the situation instead of translating each word.
That sounds difficult. I am not going to lie.
It feels difficult at first, but with practice, your brain learns to understand directly in English.
Really? So it is like training my brain in a new way.
Absolutely. And the more you do it, the more natural it becomes.
Okay, but what about those jokes that have double meaning? How do I deal with them?
You need to start noticing when a word can have more than one meaning.
That sounds tricky. How can I train that?
By learning common expressions and phrases, not just isolated words.
So, learning chunks instead of single words?
Exactly. Chunks help your brain understand meaning faster without translating.
Interesting. Can you give me an example of a chunk?
Sure. For example, make sense is a chunk. You understand it as a whole, not word by word.
Oh, wow. I use that a lot.
You see? And jokes often use these chunks in creative ways.
So, if I know more chunks, I understand more jokes?
Yes, because you start recognizing patterns instead of analyzing every word.
That is interesting. But sometimes I hear jokes and the words sound similar and I get confused.
That is another big challenge. Pronunciation and similar sounds.
Why is that such a problem?
Because many jokes are based on words that sound the same but have different meanings.
Oh, like wordplay?
Exactly. And if your ear is not trained, you miss that detail.
So, it is not just vocabulary? It is also listening skills?
Right. Your listening ability plays a huge role in understanding humor.
Wow, I did not realize that before.
You see? That is why watching movies, shows, and short videos helps a lot.
Really? Even if I do not understand everything?
Yes, because your brain starts recognizing sounds and patterns over time.
That is interesting. So repetition is important.
Very important, especially repeating phrases out loud.
Speaking helps me understand jokes?
Yes, because when you speak, you become more familiar with how words sound.
Wow, that is something I did not expect.
You see, learning a language is not just about input, but also output.
Okay, but what about cultural jokes? Those are even harder.
That is true, because they depend on shared experiences and knowledge.
So, if I do not know the culture, I do not get the joke?
Unfortunately, yes, because the joke references something you may not be familiar with.
That explains a lot. Wow.
You see? That is why consuming content like sitcoms and memes helps.
Memes too?
Yes, because they are short, visual, and full of cultural context.
Interesting. I never thought about that.
And they help you learn how humor works in real situations.
So, I should not focus only on formal English?
Sure, because humor lives in informal, everyday language.
That makes sense now, right?
Right, and that is where real communication happens.
Okay, but I still feel insecure when I do not understand a joke.
That is normal. Even native speakers sometimes need a second to get it.
Really? Even natives?
Yes, because some jokes are designed to surprise you.
Wow, that makes me feel better already.
You see? Not understanding immediately is part of the process.
So, I should not feel embarrassed.
Not at all. You should see it as learning.
That is a relief.
Exactly. And confidence grows when you accept that.
Okay, so how can I practice understanding jokes step by step?
First, listen to the joke carefully.
And then?
Try to understand the situation or context.
Okay, that seems doable.
Then, identify keywords that may have more than one meaning.
Interesting, like clues.
Exactly. Like clues leading to the twist.
And the twist is the funny part, right?
Yes, that is where the surprise happens.
Wow, I think I am starting to see how this works.
You see? Once you focus on the twist, everything becomes clearer.
This is actually making sense now.
Exactly. And you do not need to understand every word.
Really? That is good to know.
You just need to understand the key idea behind the joke.
So, Liam, how can I start responding naturally when I hear a joke in English without freezing or overthinking too much?
The key is to use simple and natural reactions that people actually use in real conversations, instead of trying to sound perfect or overly formal.
Interesting. So I do not need a perfect sentence every time?
Not at all. Because in real life, people react with short expressions like, "Oh, I get it now. That's funny," or even just, "No way."
But what if I do not understand the joke at all? What should I say in that moment?
You can say something simple like, "Wait, I don't get it yet," or "Can you explain that?" That keeps the conversation going without pressure.
That is interesting, because I usually just stay quiet and feel awkward.
And that silence often creates more anxiety. Simple communication keeps things relaxed and human.
So it is better to react honestly instead of pretending I understood, right?
Exactly. Because real communication is about connection, not perfection.
Wow, that really changes how I see conversations.
You see? Once you allow yourself to be imperfect, you actually become more fluent.
That sounds a bit ironic.
It does. But it's true, because overthinking blocks your natural ability to communicate.
So, overthinking is one of the biggest problems?
Yes. especially when learners try to build perfect sentences before speaking.
And that affects understanding jokes too?
Absolutely, because jokes happen fast, and if you pause to analyze, the moment is gone.
Wow, that explains why I miss so many jokes in conversations.
You see, humor depends on timing, and timing requires quick understanding.
So, how can I improve that speed?
By exposing yourself to natural English regularly and practicing quick reactions with simple phrases.
Like training my brain to respond faster?
Exactly. And the more you practice, the less you rely on translation.
That makes sense now. But sometimes I feel like my English sounds too formal.
That is common. Real conversations are more relaxed than formal English.
Can you give me an example of that difference?
Sure. Instead of saying, "I did not understand the humor," people say, "I did not get it."
So I should focus more on how people actually speak.
Absolutely, because that is what helps you connect and understand humor.
How do I know if I am improving in understanding jokes?
You'll notice that you start catching small details faster and reacting more naturally without thinking too much.
So it is more about feeling than measuring.
Exactly. It's about how comfortable and confident you feel in real situations.
Wow, I like that perspective.
You see, language learning is not just logic, it's also intuition.
So if I focus on context, sounds, and double meanings, I can understand jokes better?
Sure, those are the main elements that unlock humor in English.
And I don't need to understand every single word, right?
Right. You just need to catch the idea and the twist.
This is starting to feel much more possible now.
You see? Once you change your approach, everything becomes easier.
Okay, but I am really curious about the final tip you mentioned earlier.
That is the most important part. It can completely change how you listen to English.
Really? Now I'm excited. What is it?
Instead of trying to understand the joke, ask yourself one simple question.
And what question is that?
Ask yourself, what here could have two meanings?
Wow, that is actually a very powerful idea.
You see? This question trains your brain to look for hidden meanings instead of obvious ones.
So it changes the way I listen completely.
Exactly. And once you start doing this, you will notice jokes much faster.
That is amazing. I never thought about it like that before.
And this habit builds your understanding naturally over time.
So instead of translating, I'm exploring meaning.
Perfectly said. And that's the mindset shift you need.
So let me ask one final question.
Sure, go ahead.
Can I really learn to understand English jokes if I keep practicing this way every day?
Absolutely. With practice and the right mindset, humor starts to make sense.
Okay, I get it now. But what do I say first in a real conversation?
That's exactly what we'll cover next. Click the next video to learn how to start a conversation in English. See you there.
Bye!